Hi, beautiful people. Diana here. About to go live with a really phenomenal guy. And if any of you join live, you will be able to ask questions live. And if you don't, then you will watch it on the replay. Anyway, for any of you who don't know me, my name is Diana. And in the beginning of the year, I began doing Instagram IG Live. And I interviewed people that had three criteria. They had to teach me, inspire me, and make me laugh. That's it. And if I could have a conversation with them for half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever it might be, and I could learn a little something and share what they are doing for their community, then it would be a good thing. So today I'm interviewing a really great guy named Mike. Mike is the head of, or Mike is many things. So where do I, the head of production didn't get my paperwork ready. I have to fire that Chico, terrible director. Anyway, so Mike is the creator of Everyday Detox. I mean, I could write a book of everything that Mike has done, but I have to keep it short. So Mike, I've known for over 20 years. He is a colonic hydrotherapist, and he has two studios, one in Oregon and one in New York. He is a detox king, I call him that, but he's a detox guru and a health consultant. He is a holistic health counselor. He's a former New York chef, holler. He is the creator of a podcast called Everyday Detox. And he does IG Live quite frequently, and he's incredibly generous, and he lets people ask questions. And we learn, every time I go on there, I learn a lot. And he also is the creator of Everyday Detox Academy, which I just graduated from. It is a brilliant 3.5-hour workshop or course with a ton of material. And the thing I love most about Mike is that he's incredibly clear. He's probably one of the best teachers that I've ever known. He's not intimidating. You know, health and wellness people can be really intimidating if you don't know everything from bacteria to microbiome to... There's a lot to learn in the health and wellness. And Mike is never intimidating, and he's a brilliant teacher. So if you want to kind of dive deep and learn a little bit more about your body and detoxing and what's working and what's not, DM me and I can direct you. It's a wonderful class that you have forever and ever. And you download it, and it's about 3.5 hours, but it's brilliant. And he's a husband, and he's a papa, and he has a new toddler. Well, not new, but he has a toddler named Ever, who is just adorable. So if you follow him on Instagram, you will see how creative he is with his young son. So there are 5 people here. So if you want to tell me who you are or where you are calling in from. And hopefully Mike will now kind of check in. But if he doesn't check in because he's perhaps on father duty and he might be dealing with his toddler, then we'll do this another time. But, and voila! Oh, I love it when it works. Did we do it? Did we do it? Did we do it? Oh, we did
Hey,
it!
what a reunion, huh? It's been
Oh
so
my
long
God.
since I've seen
I love it when it works. You know, it doesn't always work. And
you. I
so,
know.
I'm a newbie. You've been doing this for a long time, but I'm a newbie. So, now wait, I thought you were in the park with Ever and your wife.
We were at a children's festival, and
Okay.
but I was coming back here to the office for this, so it was close to the house. He was watching some other little kids do ballet, and we were doing crafts. Today's going to be 104 degrees, so we had to get back to the house because it's already 12:30 in the West Coast, so it's like noon sun, and like can't have him out in that. I wanted to do this live out.
104. 104. I think we're hitting 92 tomorrow, but I think Palm Springs is 112 today. Ouch. Okay.
I like it. I like the.
You like it? Wait, it get dry? It's not humid, right?
No, not humid here. And I just go out in it all day and I just get all the vitamin D I can. I love it.
Yeah, well, I know you're very happy out there. So we've got a lot of cool stuff here. Like I said, I'm new at this, so I don't know how we have 20 people, but we have 20 people on. So hi, 20 people. And if anyone has questions, put them in the thingy. And Mike, you're probably better at this because I'm not good at reading and talking at the same time. So if you see anything, let me know.
I will. And I want to ask you, before we even start, you're still in New York, right?
I'm not leaving.
You're not leaving. You know, I wanted to get your, because I know that you are you're a lifetime New Yorker, and I have friends that are lifetime New Yorkers that I thought would just live and die there, and they live there for, 30, 40, 50 years, some of them, and they're just getting up out of there and they don't like it. But every time I look on social media, it looks fine. It looks like everything's going great over in New York. So what's the vibe?
Here's the key. I've been here 35 years. I don't have a country home. This is my home. I love New York. It has never been, it's hot in here. I closed the windows because I didn't want the New York noise, and now I can't breathe, so I'm just going to grab the fan. It has never been as bad as it is now. And that's the abbreviated version.
Crime?
Yeah, crime and really the level, crime is out of control. Crime is out of control, and the level of mental health issues, especially in the subway, and I don't want to get details, but they could use a colonic, but there are things that are not good for like 9 in the morning for people taking their children to school. It's bad, but I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We will get through this. I'm not going anywhere, but it's not. Your friends that can move, I don't blame them, and especially if they have children, I don't blame them. But this is my home. I'm a New Yorker.
Because I would have been just like you too, because I was not someone, I don't have a summer house, So if I didn't leave New York when I did, and I were just going through it there, I would have been there the whole time.
You would have dealt with it. I know. And wow, what timing. When did you move to Oregon? Like 2 years before the pandemic?
I did a little back and forth for a while, but about 2 years before the pandemic. Yeah. So I kind of just settled.
Talk
over
about
here.
the best thing that you've ever done, right?
I know. I didn't know I was doing it, I didn't know how lucky I was, but yeah.
I know. Well, so,
Joyce is throwing you major compliments right now.
Now, why can I not see anything?
I don't know, but she's saying, let's all focus on how beautiful Diana still is amongst the chaos.
Snap. Maybe I hit a button and I don't see any comments at all. So if you see them, just tell people I say hi.
Oh.
Thank you, Joy.
Someone's asking where I am in Oregon. I'm in Ashland, Oregon.
There you go. Okay, isn't that weird? I have no comments. Now, I did put on the notifications, do not disturb. Maybe I did it for everything. Anyway, so you answer people. I can't. I see nothing.
Okay, yeah. So if I see some things come in, they're moving fast. So, but
if people say hi, I'm not blowing you off. I just have nothing. Anyway, so you, my friend, transformed your life about 20 years ago from 30.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Notes are not good. 30 years ago, you transformed your life from growing up in Staten Island, partying, drinking, smoking, hanging in the street, running with the wrong crowd. And you transformed your life completely. It's like 360 times 5. Your body, your health, your lifestyle. I would love you to answer kind of related to you, but for anyone else that might be here who's like, God, I really need to shift things up. What were 3 tips or tools that you did right in the beginning that kind of got you from holy shit to, yay, I like it? And what advice could you give to anyone else who would like to make a major shift, because you made a major shift?
The thing that I've been saying for so long is that it has to be consistent and you have to enjoy it and be enthusiastic about it. So the first thing that I did is I changed my entire environment and everyone I was spending time with. Like they had to go. Interestingly enough, I mean, a lot of the times we are our own worst sabotage, right? But oftentimes the people around us will try to bring us down, and not even in a malicious way. But like, and look, when I changed my life, I was much younger, so my friends were, they were all much younger, so it was like a lot of young men and stuff. So I don't blame them for this, but
they were living like a 20-year-old should live. I mean, not should live, but live. Yeah. Yeah.
But I would show up somewhere and I'm trying to like hang out at a bar on a Friday night because that's what I'm with the people that are closest to me always. And they're like, oh man, you haven't smoked for a week, just have one, or just tonight, just do like, so like and that happens into adulthood too, you know? But like I had to change that, and I'm still friends with them to this day, but like I dropped a lot of them. Like the distance, like they just had no space for in my life. I got very much at that time, I really went deep into studying and working on myself and playing with food, and like, so I kind of was alone a lot for a little while, you know? And then the friends that found it interesting, we really got tighter. So they'd be like, oh, I'll come to that weird vegan restaurant with you, but can you come see this music with me after? And like, so we like kind of exchanged it that way, and it kind of like worked well. But yeah, so changing everything around you is important, because you gotta, you know, I've heard Tony Robbins talk about, you know, your mindset. Like it only takes a little bit of poison to kill you, just a drop. So you really have to protect yourself from that little bit of poison, especially if you're not someone that's, you know, just sort of grounded in what you want to do, you know? And a lot of people want to make changes and they flip flop, and like the slightest little event or a holiday or a friend suggesting something,
and they're gone.
The whole thing's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you stay grounded. I mean, I don't know how many people are really, really grounded at 20, even though the millennials seem to be a lot more grounded in their 20s than the baby boomers were. I know two things that I did. I quit smoking, and I quit twice. The first time it didn't work, like I told everyone. And then before you knew it, Marlboro Light. And then I quit again, and I didn't tell anyone. And I didn't go out drinking.
Yeah.
So that was the whole environment change. And then I nailed it. And then the other thing I did when I lived in New Orleans, I was dating a musician who was very famous. And I was like, wow, I have a famous musician boyfriend. But the drug world came very quickly with that. And I dove so deeply into that. Like it happened, like you said, it's just like lighting a match. And I remember getting a phone call from my brother early in the morning, and he's like, Di, like, I've been trying to reach you, what's up? And I hung up the phone, I kicked everyone out of my apartment, I broke up with the guy, and I went cold turkey. And it saved my life.
Yeah.
So years later, I told my brother. I didn't want to let him know right away.
Yeah.
But I think that's great. Changing the environment, I think, is one way to do it.
Yeah, you have to do it. I mean, you know, when you look at Instagram accounts or like YouTube or whatever, read books on it, everybody that's into the success mindset, whether it's about making money or like whatever their thing is, they always talk about, you know, you have to change, like the 5 people you spend the most time with, you become.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
The next one, I think I know one of them, but I love this question. The question is for today. What are your 3 favorite books and why? I think I know one of them.
I imagine the books we're talking about are going to be involved with the cleansing life, right?
But it can be something else.
Well, I'll keep it specific to cleansing, because I have a lot of favorite books. The first one is a book that basically any book by John Robbins, but Diet for a New America was one of the most profound books that I ever read, because I had never associated the relationship to food and pesticides and toxicity and disease and the way animals were treated. So this was like mind-blowing for me. Maybe people know this these days. I don't know. The world seems to walk around like they don't know this. So I think this book would be mind-blowing for a lot of people still. He also
when did that come out? Like 20 years ago? When was it published?
I think that came out in the 80s.
Okay.
So a long time ago, 40-something years ago, yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. I love the 80s, yeah.
But John Robbins gave one of the greatest contributions to humanity with the books that he wrote. And he wrote another one called May All Be Fed, and he wrote another one about longevity. but very well researched, very thoughtful. So I still love that book to this day. Of course, The Mucusless Diet Healing System by Professor Arnold Ehret. Even though a lot of that book is not true, the parts that he gets right are like the most misunderstood parts of nutrition today. And I still see everybody on social media getting all confused and getting it all twisted.
A lot of information out there.
So important. And then there's a book called The Enzyme Factor by Dr. Hiromi Shinya. And that book is, that's like a modern day colon health by Norman Walker. Norman Walker, another person, a lot of fantasy around what he wrote, but the key points that he makes are very true. But then there's a lot of weird shit that's like not really verifiable and stuff like that. Dr. Hiromi Shinya basically rewrote that book in a modern way through the lens of a GI doctor and the doctor that invented the colonoscope. So in a very clean Western medical way without any of the weird fantastical bullshit thrown in there, which I appreciate. I love all that old weird cleansing.
You like the weird stuff, yeah. I think you talked about that book on one of your IG lives.
Yeah, that's the book you give to your family. Your family's like, what is like this into? That's the book you give them. Respected doctor, very easy to understand, validated through Western medical science, unarguably showing the relationship between diet and disease and the intestinal health and disease. It's like, it's so clean. It's such a good book.
Can you later today or tomorrow, whenever, type in the book? So if anyone is going to catch it, we'll have it on print.
Yeah, I don't have any of my books in here, unfortunately.
It's okay. It's all right. You're in your new studio, right?
No, I'm in my home office today.
Oh, you're in your home office. Okay. So raw diet. I think you know that one of the things I love about you is that you never have any judgment to any of your clients and people that you work with. Your main focus is it working for you? So I think you know that I'm not raw, and I also eat some meat, but very little, and I eat goat cheese. And you never ever judge me. And when you're working with me, you just want to make sure, is it working for you? And if not, let's find out what's not. So I know that you are focused on a raw diet, and you have for quite a long time. So for anyone that might be here that doesn't know about Pure Food and Wine or a raw diet, I would say why and how to go about it if anyone wants to try it. And basically, what is the value? What are the benefits from it?
You know, I didn't understand the raw diet when I first heard about it, because my introduction to clean eating was through the more 80s, 90s traditional vegan diets and macrobiotics and whole grains and things. Now the raw diet, it just changes that whole game up, and I had to really sit and think with it, because I had spent like 7 years really understanding the philosophies of like a cooked vegan diet, and I had my idea of what natural food was, right? Like, so I had these definitions in my head, and I was like, this is the right way to do it, you know? And it was, I hadn't broadened my thought process yet, because I was very young still, you know, and I was reading other people's stuff, and I was just sort of integrating it. And the idea of a raw food diet is basically a grainless diet. It's very different than what I had sort of been indoctrinated in, right? Mm-hmm. And then I realized one day, you know, I really started getting on the search of what was the natural human diet. And I realized one day that in order to use fire to cook food, you need to exist first, which means that you lived on a raw diet. That's the original diet. So when we go through all these ancestral diets, and we go through all of these ancient, you know, all this like ancient wisdom and all that stuff, it doesn't matter how old it is. If you really want to know what was made for this human system, we have to look at what were we doing before we
where we began.
Yeah, right. When did it begin? In order to use it, you needed to be here already, which means that and all organisms exist in relationship to their environment. Everything is species specific, right? So the air is supposed to be a certain way, the temperature, you know, like we originated at the equator. You know, we didn't originate, you know, in Antarctica, right? Or in the North Pole, right? We made our way up there because of the brain, but we originated there. So that's the original, those foods that are present there are the original foods that were meant for us. And we didn't use fire initially. And I'm not 100% raw foodist anymore. I do eat some steamed vegetables and stuff. I'm not a purist in that regard. And I think that cooked food is really good for transition and really good for a landing place for a lot of people, as long as it's clean, depending on what they like to do, you know, how they like to eat and what results they're looking to get. But that's where I originally realized, like, oh, that is the natural human diet, you know, is a form. We have foods in their most unadulterated and most intact form when we do that. You know, so when we use heat, like if we cooked our hands the same way, God, I see these vegan chefs cook mushrooms and they're like, this lion's mane has all these super amazing things. And then they're like searing it and frying it and grilling.
Yeah, and it's everything beautiful about that mushroom is gone. I can't.
It's absolutely fucking
You might as well
dead.
put it in a blender. Yeah, please.
Just the whole thing is dead. Like,
I
you know.
can't.
And we do that with a lot of food. We cook them to death. Like, there's ways to cook food that is less destructive, of course. But, you know, in general, like, when you cook that, if you did that to your hand would be dead and it would just be destroyed. That's the same thing you did to the food. So when we try to eat it, all those beneficial elements are just not there. So when we're looking at greens and fruits and things like that, you know, when we're eating them in their raw form, enzymes are present, minerals are present with their electrical charge still intact, and the vitamins are through the roof. And, you know, heat destroys enzymes and vitamins primarily. So, and it degrades the fiber content as well, makes it softer through the system. So to varying degrees, this is all very destructive. You know, steaming some broccoli is always going to make somebody healthy. But if you're searing that mushroom and grilling it, marinating and boiling it, and like, you know, you're cooking something 10 different ways, it's just a big dead piece of slop by the time you're done with it. And our bodies are amazing that they'll still be able to get some calories and extract whatever's left from it. But it's actually very polluting to the system when we do that. So I'm not a purist. I think when people want to eat whole grains and steamed vegetables and baked sweet potatoes, I think that's awesome. If people want to eat, if you're going to eat any animal food, like fish or something, especially these days, you probably should be cooking it. So in that regard, you know, there are ways. Cooking with water is one of the least destructive ways to cook food. Steaming, blanching is probably one of the
What
best.
about roasting?
Roasting dry is pretty good. Now, I don't want to get too technical. I roast things all the time. If you roast it with oil, it becomes a problem. We never want to cook fats because we don't want the fats to glycate. We don't want glycation to occur. We don't want the different carcinogenic and damaging compounds can occur when you cook fat. We know this from grilling meat and all the meat drippings hitting the fire and that black smoke that comes up.
Yeah,
that's all
that's not a good thing. Yeah,
carcinogenic. Yeah, the same thing happens with olive oil on asparagus in the oven too, though. And whenever we see any type of color on a vegetable, like browning and black, look, I'm not a purist. I put my zucchini dry in the oven and I get a little caramelization on it too. But that actually forms, I believe it's acrylamide, and that's a carcinogenic compound as well. Now this is very beyond. This is purist conversation. The average person eats a salad with some grilled asparagus. Do it, good. It's so good.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. But technically, since we're talking shop about like
we're talking shop. Yeah.
Yeah, like once we cook food that has color on it, once we cook fat, it becomes a problem. That's something I'm really strong on for my own diet. I'll steam vegetables, I'll bake sweet potatoes, but I don't eat cooked fats, I don't saute, I don't roast with fat, I don't roast nuts, because when we cook fats and proteins like that, they do start to become, they do start to create compounds that work against us. So yeah.
Well, I have a confession. I do eat raw nuts. I don't have roasted nuts, but I do roast my vegetables with a little bit of olive oil. But I will tell you, since I did your Everyday Detox Academy class, which I just loved, if anyone's on here, DM me. It's one of the most valuable things that I've ever done in my life. You are a brilliant teacher. You're so incredibly clear. You're not intimidating. As I mentioned earlier, the health and wellness world can just be really intimidating and like just there's a lot of stuff out there, but you are clear, and it's just what I love about it is that I get to watch it again and again and again.
You have it.
I have it for life. You know, I went to IIN. I think you know I went to Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and the thing that's a bummer is that you don't have the program for life. And frankly, I think you should. We would want to have, I want to have your material for life because I learn every time I listen to you talk, I learn something.
I appreciate that so much. For
I loved
everybody
it.
listening, what Diane is talking about is Everyday Detox Academy. There's a link in my bio. You can go there. There's a signature course that we launched called Eliminating the Toxic Load. It is the most valuable piece of content that I've ever made, ever. Like if my career ended today, I'd just be happy because I'm like, I did the thing that I wanted to share. I did what I wanted to do. I mean, of course, there's more as the years go on, but that right now to this point, almost 30 years, distilled into this and concentrated into this 3.5-hour course. It's the most valuable thing I've ever done. Yeah.
I mean, it's mind-blowing. Anyone can call me or DM me, but it's so clear because it goes through really essentially everything that you need to know in a very thorough way. I mean, you could have been a professor. I mean, you're just really good at, and frankly, I have a lot of teachers in my life, and you can make or break what you learn if it's not a good teacher. So if you, and again, if anyone's getting comments or happy face or hearts, for some reason I can't see anything, so hi to the 21 people who are here. Is anyone saying hi?
A lot of people are saying hi, and a lot of people have a lot of
questions. All right, we'll get that. I'm on number 3.
Connecting to the fact about, interesting about the olive oil, roasting it in the oven, and said, I had the same question. They cook mushrooms like 100 times over because they're looking to mimic a culinary experience. They're not looking to preserve that nutrition. By the way, mushrooms do need to be cooked or decocted or extracted in some way to get those valuable things because they're not really natural human foods. We wouldn't be popping them raw. They actually don't really taste good raw. I've tried some mushrooms.
No, they don't.
But
yeah.
And so what I like to do when I make mushrooms is I'll steam them. What are the ones that we forage in the mountains? I can't think.
Lion's mane, blue oyster.
Lion's mane and blue oyster are my favorite.
I love lion's mane. I'm drawing a blank, but I think
steam them, press them, drizzle them with raw olive oil after they're cooked. You press them to get the liquid out, drizzle with raw olive oil. I add a little garlic powder, a lot of fresh herbs, and then I toss them together, and they're, a little Celtic sea salt, perfect. And they've just been lightly steamed, which helps break down the cellulose and everything like that. So
maybe I'll try that. But what I will tell you that I have been doing since I took the Academy workshop is I've incorporated more raw food into my meals. And I actually really like it. And it's so funny, you know this better than anyone or all the people here. When you allow yourself to change your palate, when you invite your palate, and I'm a chef for anyone who doesn't know, when you allow your palate to experiment, it will tell you, holy shit, that works. Yeah. And then you do it again and again, and then before you know it, it's like, yeah, I eat raw food. So I kind of like, I love playing around with that concept. So.
The enthusiasm about the food, like people that are into food, it's easier to change. I remember the first time I discovered miso, and I was like, what is this? I never had that in Staten Island. I'm like smelling it, and it smells like wine almost, or and then the flavor, it's so complex, and like it was fun. I was like, this is great.
I often tell people who I teach, the cooking lessons and stuff like that, it's all about playing. Like even if you don't know how to cook or you don't know a lot of ingredients, are you willing to play? Because I think when you play is really when you're open to learn because there's no judgment.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 4. As a diabetic, if anyone doesn't know, I'm a new diabetic, 4 years, type 1, blindsided me, perfectly healthy. It came, it said, hey, you're a diabetic. It kind of fucked me up for a little while, and then I grabbed a hold of it. I went to nutrition school, I wrote a book, and now I'm coaching people. And I'm actually coaching men, which I love, who have pre-diabetes, type 1 and type 2. And that's a whole different conversation. But when I was diagnosed, I was told by conventional doctors, you have a weakened immune system and you're going to continue to get a ton of other conditions on top of this. Basically, you're screwed and you're going to get a lot more coming your way. And I didn't like that. And I said, well, I don't know if that's going to be true, but I'm going to learn everything I can to be proactive. I know I have a weakened immune system. I know now that when I cut myself, it takes a lot longer to heal. So I have to be a lot more mindful about the little things that I do because of a weakened immune system. But two things happened right in the beginning, which I've never had in my life, and I'd like you to kind of talk about it. One of them is I got eczema, and the doctor's like, yeah, you're a diabetic, you're going to get eczema. And I'm like, no. And then the other one is I got toe fungus. Yeah, you're a diabetic, you're going to get... And I'm like, no. And you were brilliant because you told me how to get rid of my toe fungus by getting the, remind me the name of the water, the HP water.
Oh, the from Eagle Enterprises, the hydrogen peroxide, 35% grade? Yeah.
You told me to get hydrogen peroxide water and soak my toes, and I don't take that cream for like a million years that no one ever recovers from, and my toe fungus is gone and my eczema is gone. But I would love you to tell us about the link between eczema, because I'm sure there are many people here who have it or know people who have it, gut health and microbiome.
Yeah, you know, just going back to the diabetes for a second, do you follow Mastering Diabetes on Instagram?
You know, when I was lying on your table, getting a colonic many moons ago and telling you that, you told me about them.
Oh, okay.
And I did follow them, but I am not 100% on board because I don't eat a ton of fruit. Because every diabetic knows that your body reacts differently. I react very strongly to fruit. So, and they are heavily based fruit and vegetable diet.
Yeah, they are, because they limit the fat, and then the fruit sugar generally gets used immediately, and it doesn't allow any opportunistic microbes in the body, yeast or anything like that, to utilize it and to proliferate. That's why they do that. But anyway, I didn't know if
I pop in every now and then and I check them out. I mean, I think the great thing, I mean, yeah, it's not to have this, but the great thing is that I'm constantly evolving. So what I'm talking about and believing in today, maybe next year I won't. And even the book that I wrote, there's 25 ingredients that got me healthy when I was diagnosed. I don't eat all of them now. So, I mean, I think that's the great thing about whenever you have any kind of condition, is that you're constantly asking questions and learning.
Where can people get your book?
DM me.
Okay. DM me.
Oh, thank you. DM me and I will send you a copy. Yeah. Thank you. That reminds me, I have to send you a copy.
I would love a copy of your book.
Yeah, give me your address. Duh. Okay, so the eczema, link, and gut health and microbiome.
Well, the skin is a reflection of what's going on the mucosal membrane of the intestine, right? So whatever it is, whatever the name they decide to give to it is, unless it's an external source, unless we're having some type of, an inflammatory reaction to, like, things like my wife's allergic to grass and, like bee stings and stuff. Like, so obviously, unless there's something coming at us from the outside that we're reacting to, but if we're just sitting here, we're reacting to what's happening internally. Sometimes it's because we're having a reaction to a food. Sometimes it's because we're having a reaction to the residue of food sitting in the body and not leaving fast enough. And then the skin is the largest organ of elimination and will pick up that load that the internal detoxification system can't process out, because the body will do everything it can to cleanse itself. We just generally get in the way and we put things in that are stickier and stickier. Now, when this happens and food residue sits in the intestinal tract, it decomposes and changes the environment, right? So it doesn't matter how many probiotics somebody takes, because if the environment is wrong, they're just going to die in there. It's like putting freshwater fish in a saltwater tank. Like, they're just going to die.
It's not going to work.
Not right.
Yeah.
So we need to get that environment right. And then once the environment's right, the microbiome starts working in our favor. It keeps pathogens and parasites at bay. It helps break down food waste and residue. It helps detoxify the system. It helps communicate to the immune system the right information regarding pathogens inside of the intestinal tract, because this is the most intimate relationship we have to the outside world, is what we put in our mouth and pass through our system. It's technically outside of our body still when we eat it. right? It's only allowed in when the body allows it in, right? And leaky gut becomes a problem because things that shouldn't be coming in come in. But that environment is crucial, because that environment can self-pollute our own system, because things that should not be there are absorbing up into the bloodstream. Then the liver has to deal with it, then the skin has to deal with it, and it drains us in that way. Most people are walking around, Gil, one of my teachers, he calls people, he says he calls them lovingly. I don't know how lovingly it is, but he always calls people that are modern American eaters, he calls them cesspools. Because what's happening, and as a colonic therapist, you see it, what's happening in the intestines of the average American is cess. It's a cesspool of fermentation, putrefaction, and decomposition. It's not a system that's getting cleaned and like feeding the microbiome and carrying waste out in this free open system where, we know what it's like to use a bathroom in Grand Central Station. It's rough what comes out of people. So yeah.
So for someone who's not in health and wellness, and someone who has eczema, and they've been given medicine after medicine and nothing's happening, what would you tell them? Would you tell them that it begins with the gut? Like, what are you eating? What are you releasing? I mean, it can always go back to that.
Yeah, hydrate, sweep, flush. Hydrate, sweep, flush. So
wait, what was the second one? Hydrate,
sweep. So
what does that mean?
Sweep meaning the Vitality Broom Cleanse, which is available to everyone if they want it. There's a link in my bio.
Tell people about it.
Yeah, it's a cleanse that we created. It's sort of like a step down from juice fasting, meaning like you're not as committed, you're not like going deep into something. And it was designed for people looking to prepare for their treatments, for their colonic. So it was a way of eating for 1 to 3 days before, where you're choosing certain ingredients in your salads, juices, and smoothies that help hydrate, sweep, and stimulate the elimination of waste. So we consider the broom foods the soap and the colonic the shower, right? But even if
wait, repeat that. It's a good line.
The broom foods are the soap and the colonic is the shower, right? So
that needs to be on a T-shirt, by the way.
I know.
That's great.
We have people coming without prepping all the time, and we do good colonics on them. But if you lather up first, we'll get you in a really good space when you get out. So doing the preparation it's not essential, but it's key for maximizing your time on the table with us if you're coming in. But even if somebody's not getting a colonic or doing something like that, these foods are going to help sweep waste away from your intestine. And that's what we want. When we look at, I have a video on my YouTube channel, Everyday Detox on YouTube. There's a video called So Think Colonics Are Nonsense, and it's me going through colonoscopy footage of different diets from Dr. Hiromi Shinya's files.
It's in the Academy, right?
I put it in, it's in the Academy as well. But I also, that section, I do a shorter version of what I do in the Academy. The Academy is much more in-depth on everything. There's like a quick 3-minute video where it's me talking about the importance of colonics and going through the colonoscopy footage. Shorter version, like 2 minutes. The one in the Academy is much longer. Yeah, that's what those foods and juices are designed to do. So we hydrate with water, because most people are dehydrated. And when we're dehydrated, it's not only a problem with the blood concentrating, it's not only a problem of not having the transport medium for the kidneys to work well and things like that. It's a problem because the body tries to self-preserve and it finds water anywhere. And the large intestine, which is what we cleanse in the colonic, pulls water out of the food residue, getting it to be in a more presentable state for elimination. Otherwise, we would just be leaking watery bowels all over the place. We don't want that, right? So the body absorbs last-minute nutrition and absorbs liquid, and as it moves through, it becomes more formable. So it's a little bit more of a better procedure when we go to move our bowels, right? So it will, if we have like tons of pizza and cheese and white flour and steaks, and if that's what we're eating, and then we're drinking wine and coffee and not a lot of water,
nothing sweeping. Yeah,
we're getting dehydrated. Everything's getting sticky. The body's pulling all the water, and we're getting rocks building up in our intestine. We're getting sticky waste in there. And you see this in the colonoscopy footage, and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? But when we're drinking water, we're drinking raw juices that stimulate the bowels. We're eating water-containing fruits and vegetables. that are loaded with beneficial fibers, and they're rich in enzymes. All that stuff cleans up the intestine and stimulates movement and sweeps waste away. And you don't have that buildup. You know, you don't have all that stuff in your body. And then the skin starts to clear up. And then eczema will start to go away. You can see in the old cleansing books, they do all of these bowel cleanses, and they show day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and they show people with extreme eczema psoriasis, and it starts to come back and go down.
Wow. Okay. And the broom cleanse they can find on your IG in the bio, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
link in my bio has all the things I ever talk about. It's almost all there if you just scroll through all these different links. Yeah.
We have 23 people. I've never had 23. Are they like 22 of your friends and one of mine?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm so happy. Thank you, everyone.
I'm so happy. Thank you, 23 people, 23 and me. But thank you. That's fantastic. So, this is a fun question. So you're a father of 2, but you have a young one. How old is Ever?
Ever is 2 years old.
He is, if you haven't follow Mike just for the Ever. I mean, I just can't get enough of your boy. Plus, he's like, talk about like a photo. He's so photogenic, and you've got him with the chickens and eating like fresh vegetables, and he's so happy. So
He has the best.
I'm not sure if you did any of that with your other son, but what is your best advice for any new parent or a parent of someone of a child, I would say under 5? What is your best advice to them?
So here's an interesting thing, and we'll talk about it with we'll just talk about my older son too, by the way. My older son is 31, and my younger son is 2, right? I raised them both. I'm raising one now, but I raised my first son when I was already eating clean. Not for the first.
You were clean.
Yeah, not for the first few years, but when he was an infant, you know, I was still an alcoholic mess or whatever. But then I don't remember exactly how old he was. Let me see. So by the time he was 3 is when I got my life together, and he was there for me. He worked at the same health food store I did at one point. You know, when I was younger, then he got a job there when he was a teenager. Like, he knew my deal. He used to help me push carrots through the juicer. He loved eating raw nori sheets. Like, so he had an introduction to that, but so a really important thing to do, and this is important in a household, just for the mental health though, because I've seen a lot of people raise their children idealistically, some on raw foods, some on vegan diets and things. And there's a certain it can create restriction, and it's a weird game. Creating these patterns of restriction, or even FOMO, like kids, like, you know, they go into a birthday party and it's like,
and they're all having pizza and cupcakes.
Yeah.
And he's eating a carrot. Yeah.
But in the house, right, the child has to eat. How do I say this? They have to be as loose with their restrictions as the loosest person in the house. So he gets a lot of stuff from me, but his mother likes vegan cupcakes and pizza and stuff like that. So he has to have that, because otherwise you can't have
3 meals. Yeah.
Yeah, and you also can't have somebody saying, "Hey, I want that. How can mom have that? But, you know, I can't have that." Like, so you have to. So whatever the family unit is, the person with the least restrictions, the children have to be able to eat like they do. You know, and this is tough. This is tough for some parents. I have women that contact me, like, my husband eats, my kids will only eat goldfish, you know, the cheesy, buttery things, and like, my kid will only eat this and that, and, you know, and I go, well, why do you have it in the house? And they go, well, I don't eat that. My husband does. And I'm like, okay, well, then that's it. Like, you can't have it.
I know mothers that cook 3 meals.
Yeah.
3 different meals, you know, one for them, one for the husband, one for the kids, like 3 completely different. That's a lot of work.
So my younger son, I let him do those things. I let him go. He wanted to eat atomic wings, whatever the hell that was. I used to get him. There was some garbage chicken, you know. I would bring him to Angelica Kitchen. He would have some food with
You mean
me.
your older son?
My youngest one. My oldest one, sorry.
Yeah, okay. I'm like, wait, ever was in Angelica Kitchen? Okay, all right.
Yeah. He wanted, you know, my oldest son wanted juice. He wanted some things. But then he's like, I want pizza with grandpa, you know. And I'd be like, of course, because that's the way he ate at home, you know. So I let him do that. But interestingly enough, though, he had the consequences of a lot of that diet. He's cleaned it up. He's plant-based now. He eats clean now. He juices. He sends me pictures of him juicing all the time. but he had consequences. I mean, he had kidney stones when he was still a teenager.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was very bad for him. And then he had cancer as well. So yeah,
Boy.
so he kind of awakened to some things. You know, sometimes we need the experience to do it. I went to a dark place to sort of awaken a little bit as well. And that's the value in it. That's a whole other conversation. The value in making bad decisions sometimes can be, and bring ourselves to a dark place is tremendous, you know?
I mean, we just talked about that in the beginning, your value of your growing up in Staten Island and everything that you went through. My value of being in New Orleans with a famous musician who took me down a very dark drug life, and a phone call from my brother that was like, I mean, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. One thing that kind of I found interesting, you mentioned the word environment when you first talked about how did you transform your life. You talked about environment. And then when we talked about eczema, you talked about the environment of really of your gut. And I think that's a really interesting thing to hear about. It's like, you know, how often do we pull back the lens and look at the environment of our love relationship, our kitchen and what we eat, our home, like really taking a look. And, you know, without talking about it, but I think the pandemic did a little bit about that because we were locked in our environment and it made us say, well, do we like it or do we not? So,
Yeah, auditing is a big thing for people, I think. Audit your life.
really important. Yeah.
Yeah, like look at it and be like, what, like, because we get very wrapped up in how things are going and not even realize the decisions we're making or the people we're in contact with. And if we really sit back and we audit it and we go like, you can see very clearly how these things are affecting you, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially in New York, and you're a New Yorker. When you're a New Yorker, even when you move, you're always a New Yorker. And we're like busy, you know, you get on the phone and you say, hey, how are you? Good, I'm busy, which I hate. I never say that to anyone because it actually tells me nothing. It doesn't tell me what you're working on. Are you happy? Are you tired? It just, you know, so I think that, you know, being able to take a minute and pull back and look at your environment, whether it's, you know, your food and what you're putting in your body or even your relationships, we benefit from that. So,
Yeah.
all right, I have a few questions from people that sent them to me, and then if you see anything, let me know. So,
So we'll scroll through these. I don't know if the same people that asked questions 30 minutes
well,
ago.
let me do a couple of mine, and then we'll throw in a couple of yours if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
God, there's so
So,
many. I'm at the
someone asked me your thoughts on gluten intolerance and lactose intolerance.
Well, you know, lactose. You know, human beings are never meant to eat milk outside of mother's milk, and that's just it. So when people are like, "Oh, I'm lactose intolerant," it's like everybody really is to varying degrees. Of course, there have been adaptations that we've had based on genetics where we can tolerate it a little bit more than others. But I see dairy products in any human body, whether no matter if they're from Scandinavia or if they're from Africa. I see, you know, clients or wherever their lineage is from, I see dairy products clog their system. Do some people handle it better than others? Yes, they do, definitely. And there's various forms of dairy that, of course, are better. So people will say like, oh, raw dairy is so important because it helped my skin issues clear up or whatever. And that's because they're now having raw milk or raw cheeses, which are of a higher quality, usually organic. They do have enzymes that might help digest that food, but it's still not meant for us. Nobody's sucking on cow teats, you know, like nobody
Right.
does, you know. That's something that came much later.
So the whole fad of like oat milk is like the rage now, and I think hazelnut milk. I mean, are those again with the same theory that no one's meant to be drinking this?
Well, if we're going to get really deep into the conversation, oats aren't a natural food. Even nuts and seeds in the quantities that we have them, like almonds and stuff, aren't a natural food. That shit is so hard to grow. Doesn't mean that it's not good for us. Drinking an almond milk can be alkalizing, full of protein. It can be great. I mean, I make stuff like that all the time. A coconut almond,
Right.
you know. But we are designing our modern diets on agrarian culture, not on the way things were at the very beginning. And we're doing our best to mimic it, So we limit the volume of animal food. Humans are omnivores, but the volume of animal food is out of control in all of our food cultures around the world. We eliminate the pesticides from it. We eat more of the majority of what's meant for our body, which is the raw fibers and things like that. So we're mimicking it, but we're doing it all with agrarian food. Tomatoes didn't exist in nature the way that they do now, these big plump. It doesn't mean they're not good for us, but that did not exist in the natural world. Tomatoes were crossbred and selective bred by farmers for generations, going all the way back to the beginning of farming. I don't remember if it was 12 or 18. I think 12,000 years ago was when farming started. Although that map, as the decade has gone on, that map gets a little bit interesting too. They're finding older and older and older stuff, but yeah.
What about gluten intolerance?
Wheat is another one. You know, wheat is, grains are not a natural human food. Doesn't mean they can't be healthy. Gluten, grains have been hybridized to be stronger in gluten. There is a school of thought that says it's not really the gluten in the wheat that's causing a problem, but it's the presence now of glyphosate, and that's why all of a sudden everybody's gluten intolerant, you know, because the glyphosate sprayed on the wheat is causing the inflammatory responses, and
that's interesting. Yeah.
I have clients that say, oh, I go to Europe and I eat, you know, bread there and I don't have any problem. I come back here and I eat bread in New York and I'm bloated and I don't feel good and I have congestion. So yeah, there's a little something to that, but gluten protein does not break down the way other proteins do in the body. It transfers into the bloodstream whole, and then the body sees a foreign protein and has a reaction to it. Some people deal with it better than others, obviously.
That's so interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Gluten always gave me allergies. It gave me congestion and mucus. You know, I never had, but I don't consider myself gluten intolerant really. Another thing, you know, like I haven't eaten grain for like almost 25 years, but like I used to eat a lot of it when I was a chef. I came up in the grain world of vegan food, grains, beans, all that stuff, right? And there's a big difference between eating a bowl of like steel cut wheat berries or whole wheat berries boiled like rice and eating that, and then eating breads. You know, very different way it affects the body, even though it's the same source ingredient.
Next question. Can you tell me your opinion on cystic acne and acid reflux? I don't know what the first one is, but.
Well, cystic acne, I mean, that's basically a skin eruption where there's a lot of pus and usually there's an infection happening. What we have to ask ourselves, when our body's excreting waste through the skin, and sometimes it's just excess hormones that can create acne as well. The body can release hormones through the skin as well. It happened to my little man. It's really interesting little side note. He was getting, a lot of babies will have acne and little like bumps on their skin because they are detoxifying the mother's hormones, because they're not their hormones, but it's coming through
and they're getting rid of them.
Yeah, and there's a big hormone dump and things are rebalancing in a woman after she gives birth. And my son had, so he had these little bumps and acne all over him. And then what happened was, my wife was making so much milk in the beginning, we were freezing it. And then my wife went back to work and I was feeding him all this frozen milk. And when I got to the milk, that was from that time of the pregnancy, all the acne came back. Now, the inflammation and the pus generation and the clogging of the pores that the acne causes has to do with what the body's detoxing. Right, my son didn't have cystic acne from his mother's estrogen or whatever was going on. He just had it coming through, right? When we have like when I was a teenager and I used to eat pizza, I used to put Parmesan cheese on top of cheese pizza and eat it on white bread. Like that was it. It was gluten, dairy on top of dairy, right? My acne, I was an oily person. I could not shower every day. My hair was oily. My skin was oily. I was a greasy Italian kid from Staten Island. Pimples all over me. You know, I had them on my back. I had like sheets of pimples on my back. I'd get them on my chest. You know, part of that is hormones and being a teenager, but when you see the kids that don't eat that way, it's very minimal, if at all, right? But when kids have clogging food that their body's detoxifying, you will get clogged pores, you will get a cyst, you will get a lot of pus around that because it gets clogged and the bacteria on the skin will start to break that down and then it can get infected and red and, and like, or if you pick at it or something like that. So that's generally what's happening. When you clean up the diet and the intestine, the cystic acne should stop.
And the acid reflux?
Well, acid reflux, it can come from a couple of places. Sometimes it's structural, meaning like sometimes your transverse colon could be full of waste. It could be from the intestines pushing on the stomach, right? But for the most part, it's a hydrochloric acid deficiency. So what that means is a lot of people for acid reflux will take acid reducers. It's the last thing you want to do. What you want to do is you want to increase your organic sodium content, which is a mineral that a lot of people are deficient in. You can get it from Celtic salt, different fruits and vegetables, but the primary one is celery juice, believe it or not. I know there's a big celery juice craze. That's like the one thing celery juice is actually good for. So
I know. You've talked about him before. We don't need to talk about him, but wow, and that will help?
Because it'll build up the hydrochloric acid, and what happens is then the chemical signal to the esophageal sphincter will close properly, and then the acid won't back up anymore. Because there's always acid. This is why
you heard it here, people. You heard it here.
Yeah, I can do a handstand right now, and I'm not going to have acid drip down my throat, right? Because the esophageal sphincter, everything is closed properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How to rev up metabolism in mature women. I hate the word mature woman because I'm not mature, but I guess I'm a mature woman. So how do you rev up metabolism in a mature woman?
It's in mature men as well. It's a lot of the same things. I think it's going to be movement. Movement,
okay.
And fitness. That could look like a lot of things. That could be walking and dance, or I know a lot of my clients that are women that are 50s, 60s, you know, they're lifting. They're not,
I'm lifting.
Yeah,
I'm lifting. Totally changed me. I'm lifting. Yeah.
The older we get, the more important that muscle mass becomes. It really does become important.
Huge.
A passive way, three passive ways. One is rebounding, because you can bounce. So let's say maybe your diet's not been great, or you have injuries or whatever, and maybe your body's not in the peak state. Rebounding is great. Good for lymphatic flushing, but also just really good for movement and creating, it creates, when we jump up and down, it creates it's sort of like increasing gravity in a sense. It's creating pressure on the body, right? So it's increasing the pressure. It's creating the need to be resilient.
Joy talks a lot about it, and I was like, how do I get a rebounder in a one-bedroom New York apartment?
Yeah, what you do is they make them that they fold, but usually you can just
push really?
You can even push it up against the wall, and now they took the springs out. If you get them from, I don't remember the name of it, Jump something, I don't know. But they make them with like bungee cords, like whatever, so now it's silent almost.
Well, then maybe I could get it. If I can push it against the wall, but you know, New York, we don't have big apartments.
We used to bounce on ones with springs, and every time I would rebound, people would think you're having sex in the apartment above, because it's just like springs bouncing all the time.
Yeah, you know, New York apartments and sex. Anyway, rebounding, you were like three things. Rebounding.
Lifting or rebounding. And saunas and cold immersion.
Ah, very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
It exercises the cardiovascular system. Even just sitting in the sauna mimics moderate aerobic exercise, and you're just sitting.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. Okay, can you have too much yeast in your body?
100%. People do. When that environment, we talked about environment, when that environment changes, it invites an environment where pathogenic bacteria and yeast can proliferate. So we don't ever want it to get there. You know,
yeah, because then it'll be one old party in you. Yeah, they'll have fun. Will getting rid of inflammation help you lose weight?
Well, yes, because a lot of them a lot of these things come from the same place. Foods that are excess calories or that the body has trouble eliminating generally cause inflammation.
And then they just hang in your body. Yeah.
Nobody gets inflammation or puts on too much weight from eating too many apples.
All right, I have one final question, and then you, if there's anyone, I don't know, have you heard of this woman? Have you heard of this book?
No.
There's a woman called the Glucose Goddess. I think she's French. Anyway, my brother, my nephew, my niece, they're all athletes. And there's this new craze going on where people have, you know, I have a CGM, right? So people that are not diabetic have a CGM so that they can maximize the quality of their athletic ability and their workouts. But more importantly, it's an interesting book I just started, is really for you to get an understanding of how your glucose levels are in your body. And ideally, you want somewhat of a flattening. You don't want to go up and down. And I'm a diabetic. I live and breathe 24/7. I don't have an option. But I find it so interesting that it's this new craze with non-diabetics. I haven't finished the book. I'm sure I'll have opinions, but I think it's a good thing. So what do you think about people being more educated about their glucose levels?
I think it's fun. They offer, I don't know, one of those companies that because of that book, I believe, I didn't read the book. I wasn't familiar with the author, but they contacted me and they were like, we want to send you one. And I was like, nah, don't do that. I was like, what do I need to obsess on my glucose for? I was like, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm just able to do what we've been doing for 30 years and works.
And it's working. Yeah, but for the people who are not doing what you're doing, I don't know. I mean, look, everyone's so into data. And my brother's like the king of data. And I think data's great. You are a person of data. But I think that we can get obsessed with too much data. That's why the thing that I would love about you is that you would never judge me that I ate fish or that I roasted my tomatoes in the oven, but you would just say, how are you feeling? What are you moving? Are you moving? Like, those are the important questions. That's the data that I like.
Yeah. I like the macro. The micro is fun. Like, the reason I didn't take that from them is because when somebody sends me something, I feel an obligation to because I know what they're doing. They're trying to promote their product and they're working really hard on it. So I want to show up right for them. So somebody sends me a book, somebody sends me a package of something, and says, Mike,
and they want you to promote it. Yeah.
I'm going to promote it hard. I knew that I couldn't promote that. So I was like, don't send it. But actually, I kind of wanted it because it's fun to look at data like that. But do I need it? Did any of my mentors ever do that? Do any of the people?
No.
No, we don't do anything.
No. So,
when things work really well for you, when things work really well for you, we stop looking at minutia and we stop trying to prove it to other people.
I love that.
We just talk
because
about
you just instinctively you're like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to go any further. I'm good. And when you're good.
The carnivore people and the new vegans go really hard at judging people. They go really hard at trolling on comments, and they go really hard on insulting each other. And I always look and I see how long, like there's these raw meat people that come at me sometimes. And I look and I'm like, oh, you've been doing this for 6 months. You have no idea if this is going to work for you, and you need it to work for you. And maybe you see me and you go, that dude seems pretty sharp and he looks fine and he's been eating vegan for 30 years, but I'm doing this, but this is supposed to be right. So I need to tear him down. So you can always tell the people when it's working for you. You don't go after other people. You don't have to prove it. You're not constantly preaching. You're just saying, like, look what's working. This is awesome. And that's.
Yeah. But that's not, I've known you for over 20 years. You would never even ever do that. So that's not even someone that you would want to kind of associate with. So I do want to know where people can find you, what's on your plate, and if there are any other questions that you see. Again, I apologize to the 21 people. I can't see any comments. So
don't worry, it's the people are cycling through. It's not the same. It's probably 10 of the.
It's like new people. Yeah.
All new people. Yeah.
So where can people find you? What's on your plate? And are there any questions that you can see that you want to answer?
Yeah. So we have. If people want to get the most value out of what I do, of course, follow me on Instagram. I do stuff all the time, lots of stuff on stories and posts, and I do a lot of fun recipes, and we talk shop. Also I have a podcast. It's on YouTube and all the podcast apps. Definitely, there's hours and hours and hours of content there where I'm talking really great conversations with my mentors and clients and friends and people. But if you want to get everything condensed into the greatest knowledge into the cleansing life that you ever can, go to Everyday Detox Academy. There's a link in my bio here on Instagram. It's everyday.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It's truly like And people ask me in the DMs all the time the same things I go over there, and I'll answer them, of course. But I'm like, you sound like someone that really wants to get this stuff. Like I made this for you. Like you're going to.
I'm probably one of them. I know I used to ask you questions, and you were great. You were so generous with your time. You would answer me, but yeah, I mean, it's just the Academy, brilliant. Where are you opening up more places? Are you no?
No, in person we have. There's 3 studios that I'm a part of. There's the studio I started in New York called Vitality New York City.
I went today.
Yeah, you were there today to see Adriana. Adriana
Yep.
is now the head of that studio.
Oh, amazing.
I don't know if she mentioned it, but as of like basically this month, she's the head of that studio.
Amazing.
I'm still involved with that studio. She's also the head of the Hoboken, New Jersey studio, which I'm also a part of that studio, but I don't have like the same role I used to with those studios in New York and on the East Coast. And then there's my little fun studio called Ashland Gravity Colonics in Ashland, Oregon. And it is nothing like the New York studios. New York studios are like, they're just much bigger and a big scene in the middle of the intense New York energy. And I'm in like this attic space in a massage school, and I listen to children playing at a playground, and I drink my and it's quiet. It's like, it's one room. That's all I do is colonics, no other services. It's just, so that's where we do treatments here. My colleague Sarah works here with me, that she used to work with me in New York, that some people know. So
I probably met her.
Yeah. I'm sure you know.
And then you were in Colorado, so people hire you to set them up? Is that something?
I was passing through Colorado. I was in Dallas, Texas. And,
okay, Texas, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
And I was just there. I got back yesterday, and we did a training. And let me tell you something. The therapist there, okay, I think it's still in my story. I don't know. But so I did a training for someone in their private home. She's also a trained therapist, but she's not practicing. And then she had the people that own the studio in Dallas come to work too at the workshop. And I was like, whoa, one of them is a new therapist, and I'm so beyond blown away, because there's people that when you're doing treatments, you either get it, you learn it. Some people don't get it right away, but they learn it and become excellent. And then there's some therapists that never get it ever. I've even had some of them work with me, and they just never get it, and it's so hard.
Yeah.
Everybody at this workshop got it. This new therapist, right? Her name is Bella. She gets it. She's so above it. She's beyond me.
I love that. That's so rewarding for you.
And the senior therapist, Josie, I was like, why are you at my training? She's as good as Gil Jacobs. She's amazing. She's amazing. So if you're in Dallas, you definitely want to see, I think Josie's taking time and traveling, but you definitely want to see Bella, like next level.
Where would they find Bella?
I linked it in my story. I have a link.
All right, so DM Mike if you want to find Bella in Dallas. All right, are there any questions that you see that you have time to throw in?
Let me see. We went all the way up to the top. We'll see what people have said here. There's a lot of people saying hello, telling you that you look amazing.
Thank you. It was my colonic this morning.
People having conversations with themselves.
Chatting.
Yeah. But there were some questions. Let me see. Let's see. What does that say? Okay, no, they're having conversations. There was so many comments here that I have to scroll through them all. We're in Oregon. Oh, you're up in Seattle. Yes, I am in Ashland, Oregon, and that's where I work, and I run the online school from here as well. Ashland is beautiful. Travel down there for the Shakespeare Festival. Yes, Ashland.
Oh, wow.
Ashland is.
I hear it's gorgeous.
I actually moved. The studio's in Ashland. I moved in a town just outside of Ashland, like 10 minutes away. Got a much better deal. Circle of friends is a huge influence. Somebody talking about the way that we change our life.
Huge. I love that you open with that. So powerful.
Everyone talking about the books. Oh, what was the mucus book name? The Mucusless Diet Healing System. Very unattractive name from a marketing standpoint. It was really
I remember you talking about that. It's a terrible name.
It's horrible. Like, that's the reason nobody buys that book. You know, when you get like the Talia Rosa's Raw Detox diet, you're like, oh, this looks gorgeous. You know, when you get the Mucusless Diet with Arnold Derrick with his like yay, looking with that intense gaze, you're like, who is this crazy old man? You know. What do you think about spirulina daily? It's fine. Too much spirulina or chlorella can be a little sticky in the guts, though, I noticed. But it's fine. Just take a moderate amount. You know, I kind of use some green powders and stuff and spirulina myself. I like it in carrot juice, actually. I think it's really good.
Mm.
Yeah. People are answering the questions that they had with each other. Oh yeah, I had the same question. They cooked the mushrooms. Oh yeah, we did. We talked about that one. Yeah. They destroy food. When I worked in Angelica Kitchen, I remember we got the most amazing Hudson Valley organic produce, and it would all come in, and it would be gorgeous, and rainbow chard and spinach and all. And then they'd make these casseroles with them and stuff, and they would take
Cook
it,
the hell out of it. Yeah.
steam it, and then they would squeeze all the juice out of it
I can't.
wet, and then they'd saute it and cook it, and then that would all go in the casserole and bake in the oven. And you have this thing of like army green, dense greens, you know, and like that would be one layer of this casserole that we would make or whatever. And I was like, yeah, we just killed all that food. Like, you know, it came in so beautiful.
And it was good. Angelica was good. That was like a jam. I mean, it was really yummy. I bought a bunch of Swiss chard and dandelion greens the other day, and I've just been chomping on the dandelion greens raw, and they're so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they're going to even make it to being cooked.
The thought evolves, you know, Like we have certain ways of eating healthy. There was 1960s vegetarian food, which was like, you know,
Yeah.
I still think that the type of food that Angelica did throughout the 80s and 90s and even 70s, I'm still very fond of that style of food. I think
I
it's good.
loved Angelica. Yeah, I loved it. Anyway, you have been so generous with your time. If you can put in later today or tomorrow the names of the 3 books, I'm sure people would love them.
I'll send them now so you can put it in the description. I'll shoot it right over.
Okay, and maybe we'll do this again because I just loved it. And next time I'm going to figure out the comment thing. So,
yeah, you have to tap on the screen. Joyce jumped in and she said you have to tap on the screen, but
I'm tapping. Yeah, no, I hit some button. It's all good.
Yeah.
This was so incredible. I thank you so much. Give my love to your lovely wife, to that adorable munchkin, and the chickens. Give my love to the ladies.
Gonna go see them now. Gonna make sure they have good water.
All right. Thank you so much.
Great to see you. Thank you, Diana.
All right. I'll be in touch. Oh, I need your address so I can send you a book.
Oh yes, we'll do.
DM me. Okay.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.